On today's episode of You Asked, should you go with LG's C5 or Sony's Bravia 9? Is the Sony A80J worth upgrading from in 2025? And how does turning the brightness up on your TV affect its lifespan? Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is You Asked, the show where we answer your tech questions. If you've got something you want to know, send your question to youasked@digitaltrends.com. And don't forget to tune into the show to see if your question has been selected. Our first question is a good one that comes from Bill Will 1337. He asks, doesn't having the brightness set high shorten the life of the TV? Bill's question comes from one of probably a lot of topics around brightness that we talk about on the channel. And honestly, we should address this more. But yes, having the brightness turned to higher levels does shorten the lifespan of the TV in theory and probably in practice as well. How much it shortens it, I'm not sure, but it does. The higher the brightness, the more stress you put on some of the components, including the backlight in LED TVs and organic materials and individual pixels in OLED TVs. You also have to consider temperature. Heat and electronics aren't usually a great mix. And again, more brightness means generating more heat that can also wear on parts. And this all begs the question, why do people like to have their TVs turned to maximum brightness levels? The answer is top tier performance, and honestly, because it's your TV. Do what you want. As a channel that examines TV performance, we like to know just how bright it can get. Just how good will HDR viewing look with brightness maxed out? That's why you see a lot of YouTube channels pushing the performance so hard. We've even recommended turning the brightness up as long as it's not uncomfortable to view to get the best out of the TV's HDR performance. A lot of consumers at home, I assume, figure that if they bought a TV capable of achieving high brightness levels, they might as well get the best out of it. Some people also have a legitimate need to max out their TV brightness, evident by those who ask questions all the time about what make and model they should get for brighter rooms where their TV will have to compete with big windows and lots of ambient light. Transparently, I'll also say that there aren't many TVs that we keep long-term in our studio. So we're not exactly studying brightness levels over long periods of time, like years, not months. Personally though, I've had a Samsung QN90C at home for a couple of years, and I haven't noticed drastic dips in brightness or performance or anything like that, despite the fact that I have brightness maxed out in both SDR and HDR viewing. But I also don't know if I should expect to see any degradation in picture quality after just 2 years of use. I also don't watch a ton of TV, mainly YouTube, some reality TV, sports when I have time, and movies late at night after our toddler goes to bed. So if that type of use case is similar to yours, I'd expect good TV performance for years without much of a second thought. I'd also like to assume that part of what you pay for when buying the top tier and flagship level TVs is better build quality. These manufacturers have outstanding engineers that know the products inside and out. Year after year, brightness gets pushed from the marketing side, so to keep up from a performance standpoint, the components need to be able to handle everything that comes with it. Still, if you are worried about running your TV at max brightness but don't know what level to set it at instead, you could try turning on some of the ambient light features that sense how much light is in the room and adjust brightness accordingly. The risk you run is that if the sensor is really sensitive to light, it could adjust your brightness too often and make for a not so great viewing experience. So if that's the case, just use whatever the sensor puts your brightness to as a reference point. Anyway, if the best and brightest TVs had a bad rap with durability, I'm sure we'd hear more about it. That said, I'd love to know some of the experiences that everyone's had. Have you seen brightness take a toll on your TV? Or do you feel like you even need to turn your TV up to maximum brightness levels? Let us know in the comments. Darren is up next. He says, I currently have a Sony Bravia A80J. I'm perfectly happy with it, but I like to keep up on technology and I'd like to know if there are any TVs worth upgrading to. 2 OLEDs, the Sony Bravia 8 Mark II and Samsung S95F, and the TCL QM8K QD Mini LED TV have piqued my interest. Are any of them worth upgrading to, or is there another TV I should be considering? Hey Darren, glad to hear you're still happy with the A80J because it is a great TV that still checks a lot of the boxes we see on newer offerings. You've got a 4K 120Hz refresh rate and 2 HDMI 2.1 ports, the same as the Bravia 8 Mark II. and it's a beautiful OLED TV. If you're still perfectly happy with it, then I'm assuming it's bright enough for the room it's in and everything is going well. The beauty of buying a great OLED TV from someone like Sony, Samsung, or LG is knowing that you're gonna have picture quality that holds up for years to come, like yours has. I will note that our content director here at Digital Trends uses the A80J as his main TV and says it could use a little more pop in HDR highlights, so that could be something worth upgrading for if you feel the same. Maybe try seeing some of the TVs you mentioned in person in a showroom or store. But what stood out to me about your question is, you didn't ask, are any of them worth upgrading to, or should I stick with the A80J? You asked, are any of them worth upgrading to, or is there another TV I should be considering? And I'm thinking you're looking to upgrade either way. If I were you, I'd keep sticking it out with the A80J. You still love it, and it doesn't sound like there are any glaring issues. If you were to put it side by side with the Bravia 8 Mark II, you probably see a difference. But even then, when you look at the cost of upgrading, it may not be worth it for you. The other thing with the TVs you mentioned are their unique features. While the Bravia 8 Mark II is more of what you've come to know and love with Sony OLED quality and a bit better in terms of color being QD OLED, the others have significant differences. The Samsung S95F, while also being an OLED TV, does come with the anti-glare panel that can give it a bit of a matte look when it's hit with light. It's great for eliminating reflections, and in a dark room has all the contrast and vibrance you'd expect from an OLED TV, but the matte look is still notable and not everyone loves it. Also, with Samsung, you're gonna have a different operating system, Tizen instead of Google TV, and then there's another feature, or lack thereof, that's divided the TV community, Dolby Vision. Samsung TVs don't feature Dolby Vision viewing, instead opting for HDR10+. So if you do prefer viewing in Dolby Vision, be aware of the difference. With the TCL QM8K, while you take a step forward in terms of overall brightness, you do lose the true infinite contrast of OLED. I think you'd be taking a step back, to be honest, and if you don't need additional brightness, see the last question in this episode, definitely stick with your Sony A80J. The only other TV I'd consider, if I were you and absolutely had to upgrade, would be the LG G5. The 4-stack tandem RGB OLED helps it compete with the likes of QD OLED in terms of brightness and color volume. But still, as with the other TVs mentioned, probably not worth the upgrade cost since you already have a great OLED in the home, unless you feel like you're missing some of that HDR pop. Basically, Darren, you're mostly set on picture quality. If you want to go up in size, maybe that's worth upgrading. Otherwise, I think you're good to go in terms of TV tech and hardware with the A80J. Our last question is a good follow-up to that one. Golf Addict 65 says, LG C5 in 83 inches or Sony Bravia 9 in 85 inches. Same price up here in Canada. It would be in a 12 by 12 foot room with no windows, sitting 6 to 8 feet away. Do you think that would be okay? Would a 98-inch TCL QM7K be overkill? No gaming, just sports and movies on 4K Blu-rays and streaming. Welcome back to the show, Golf Addict. Thanks for another great set of questions. I'll answer the last one first. From 6 to 8 feet away, yeah, I think 98 inches is overkill. That's just a lot of TV, and considering the other options are still very large for that viewing distance, you're gonna get more bang for your buck with the LG C5 and Sony Bravia 9 in terms of picture quality. Without windows to compete with for light, I'd go with OLED. As I've often said, I'm a big fan of LG C-Series. I know it's not at the LG G5 level or QD OLED like some of Sony and Samsung's models, but it's a damn good looking TV any way you cut it. And I mean, so is the Bravia 9, one of the best, if not the best mini LED TV available. But if you can go with a good OLED that's gonna be plenty bright enough for your viewing situation, you do it. I think the main thing to consider would be your thoughts on using LG's Web OS versus Google TV on Sony. But with brightness not needing to be a factor, plus the fact that the LG is OLED, has 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, and performs just as well, if not better, in just about every other area, the C5 is the winner here to me. That's a good one to end on this week. Thanks as always for the questions, and keep them coming. Keep sharing your own opinions in the comments as well, and we'll see you in the next episode.